So welcome to the final webinar of the fall 2019 semester. We appreciate you all coming on to the webinar after working today, and we certainly appreciate your diligence in working with our student teachers. Tonight we are going to delve into how to end the student teaching experience on a high note. And so we know that our students have had great experiences out there in the field with you all and in the classrooms with your students. And so we are excited for that experience to continue. And this session is an interactive session, and so we are welcoming your feedback both in chat and in raising your hand. There are a few sections of this PowerPoint presentation that will ask you to share some things about your experience. And so if you will kind of think about some of those experiences as I move through the agenda and be ready to share some of those things tonight. We will not hold you long tonight. If you have any questions or need to get my attention, please send me a message in the chat, especially if you can't hear or see the presentation at any point, please let us know. All right, so let's get started. I am Dr. Gaines Montgomery, and I am a faculty site coordinator here at UNC Charlotte, and I will be facilitating this session for you tonight. And our agenda is listed on the screen. So we're going to talk about how to finish strong and how to prepare for an interview or to help your student teacher prepare for an interview. We'll talk a little bit about transitioning to their own classroom, even if they're taking over for a person on leave. We'll talk a little bit about how to support them with that, and then how to end the overall experience on a high note and prepare student teachers to go out into the workforce as a teaching professional. Okay, so here's part of that participation that I mentioned at the beginning. So this is where we want you to complete the following statement. The most rewarding part of being a CE to a student teacher has been. So we would like for you to share what has been the most rewarding part of becoming a CE or being a CE to a student teacher. And you can share this in the chat, or if you would like to raise your hand on the WebEx, I'll acknowledge your hand and unmute you so that you can share. What has been the most rewarding part of being a CE? And while I give you a chance to fill that out, I'll go ahead and say what's been the most rewarding part of being a faculty site coordinator. For me this semester, the most rewarding part of my job has been, of course, seeing the students grow, but also seeing CEs use in-the-moment coaching with student teachers. It's been very rewarding because I've seen you all model for them, and I've seen student teachers actually pick up a lot of strategies that I think that they would have struggled to implement on their own, but actually seeing it in the classroom, seeing the student response to it has been priceless. And so I have enjoyed seeing the different student teachers grow as I've gone out for visits. And so I think that's probably the most rewarding part of this semester for me. Ms. Sims, Ms. Spallone, would you like to share what your most rewarding part has been for this semester? If you will raise your hand or put your response in the chat. Ah, thank you, Ms. Sims. Seeing the aha moments and watching the student teachers make connections to what they are learning in class and seeing that come alive in the classroom and them getting excited about it. Absolutely. That's one, I think that's a priceless thing that um, you really can't describe the feeling that you get when you see a student teacher say, oh, that did work. Oh, this did work. Students are getting it. That is a great strategy, because sometimes they question the strategy and if it will actually work. Thank you so much for sharing. Now let's look at the most challenging part of being a CE. What has been the most challenging part to being a CE to a student teacher this semester? And again, while you all are typing in the chat or collecting your thoughts to raise your hand in the WebEx room, I'll share the most challenging part for me. I think the most challenging part for me is knowing when to jump in and coach. Because you all as clinical educators are doing such a wonderful job with supporting student teachers in the moment. Coming in as a faculty site coordinator um, can sometimes be um, kind of finding my place and helping to support and coach because I love to coach so much. But you all are doing such a wonderful job with it. It's figuring out a place where I can jump in and coach. And I think that's been challenging, but it's been rewarding at the same time to see that I don't have to be the coach, but I can be one of the coaches that supports the student teacher. So I think that has been great. Um, okay, so I've gotten some chat responses. Turning over the classroom and allowing them to change some things in the classroom and kind of trying to help them work out, okay, yeah, working out things um, when they aren't quite going the way that the student teacher planned, trying to help support them in a quiet way, but allowing them to find that uh, experience in the moment to see if the things are working or not. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's absolutely challenging, especially when it's your room. Also, when student teachers aren't always receptive to the feedback. So trying to find a way where they will be receptive to the feedback, and that can be challenging. But giving them examples and talking them through and practicing with them is always been a great way to meet those challenges. Thank you so much for sharing those. And so with that question, I was asking, well, hello, end of semester. We are actually going through the end of the semester. And for many first year teachers, this is the phases of a first year teacher's attitude towards teaching. And if you can imagine this for a student teacher who is anticipating the start of student teaching, and then they get into a place where they're doing Ed TPA and they're also doing the classroom lesson plans and taking over in the classroom. And then they're trying to grade papers, score things, make small groups. They kind of move through this track a lot faster because they are doing all of this in a matter of a few months. And for us, it's been from basically August to now November and going into December. So they're probably still at a place of disillusionment and maybe a lot of reflection because they have gotten through survival mode with EdTPA and getting lesson plans done. And I feel that a lot of them are reflecting on their experience. They feel rejuvenated. They've now got ideas to move forward in their student teaching experience as well as into their own first classroom teaching experience. And so that's what we want to captivate. We want to captivate that reflection and rejuvenation piece as they're moving out of this semester. A few things about the rest of the semester. So as we're finishing and ending on a high note, we want to end the 49er way. And we've talked to our student teachers at orientation as well as throughout our visits with them about what they are expected to do. So just reminding that students are expected to continue to turn in their lesson plans for the blocks or the instruction that they are still given. If you're in elementary school and they're still teaching the reading block, they are still expected to turn in lesson plans for that particular time of the day that they are teaching. And then they are to continue to be active participants in the classroom during the transition. So even if they're transitioning out, and we'll talk about some other opportunities that they may have during that time, but if they are in the classroom and not outside observing or visiting another classroom, if they're in the classroom, they are still to continue to be an active participant in the classroom during those transitions. And then they are to continue to adhere to all of the guidelines in the UNC Charlotte Student Handbook. And that's basically making sure that they are still dressed appropriately, that they are on time, that they are interacting with students as well as colleagues and CEs, and any other stakeholders in the building appropriately, which I'm sure they will do. So, sharing, I would love for us to share a lesson, a strategy, or success from this semester that you might have experienced with your student teacher. And then how will this impact you and your students moving forward? And as you're thinking about that to share, I want to share a conversation that I had with one of my clinical educators who is a high school biology teacher. And she and I discussed how her student teacher has brought a lot of different technological tools that she has learned and experienced in her methods classes into the classroom. And so she basically was saying that her student teacher gave her quite the experience with technology, and that she's going to implement some of these things moving forward, even after her student teacher transitions out of her classroom. And TikTok was one of those things, which is a video app where students can make a short video using words, music, pictures, cards, flashcards, and they can make a quick video to explain their knowledge of something. And so she stated that moving forward, she would be using that along with some of the other technological tools that her student teacher shared with her. And I thought that was awesome. Not only is the CE supportive in being the coach and the teacher in the room for both the students and the student teacher, but she's also learning herself from the student teacher some strategies that she can use with her students. And in the sharing time, you can also share how maybe in the moment coaching or learning how to use assets or build assets in the classroom for both your students, yourself, and your student teacher has impacted you and how you'll move forward. So I'll give a few minutes for those who are participating to share either a lesson you've learned, a strategy that you plan to use or that you learned, or just a success from this semester that you would like to share. Okay. So one share in the chat room was continuing the unique math online with Chromebooks, with each student working at their own level. So the student teacher took the time to figure out how to create differentiated assignments and then assign those assignments to their students within their own dashboard. How cool is that within the site that I used to use for whole group and on the whiteboard? So now differentiated. That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And that's what this partnership is about supporting the university, supporting our community schools, and you all definitely supporting the university by supporting and leading and guiding our student teachers while they're in the field. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay. If we get another chat, I'll come back to that. All right. So the next thing we want to talk about is preparing student teachers for the future. And so there are five main points that I want to just talk to you about tonight. Um, with moving forward, several of our teachers or student teachers will be going on different paths as they leave your classroom. And one of the main things that they are doing now and will be doing as they move toward graduation and even afterward is interviewing and applying for different jobs. And so having time to sit and to discuss interview questions would be great. They can look online, but sometimes the questions that are online are outdated or may not be necessarily the interview questions that are used in your local area. And so by discussing interview questions, it kind of gives them a lens into what they will need to know going into an interview. Also sharing experiences, good and bad, with interviews. Um, Sharing your experiences that you've had with interviewing. Um, if you had an experience like I had where I went to an interview and it wasn't that great, and thinking maybe I was overthinking it or I really didn't share all that I wanted to share in their interview, kind of talk them through some note-taking strategies. As you're asked a question, write down the key words and take a moment to think about it and process it before you answer, and that's okay. You don't have to be able to spitfire answers like right after you're asked a question. So kind of sharing those experiences as well. Also talking to them about good. I feel like the best interviews I have or have had have been when I've been very honest and open to say, hey, I don't know about that, but I'm willing to learn about that. Or I only know a little bit on the surface about that, and just being honest about your knowledge of things and being open to sharing those. Also, consider setting up a mock interview with your student teacher. So if you want to, after school or during planning, say, hey, tomorrow let's do a mock interview. I'm going to bring some questions. You come dressed and prepared like you're going to an interview. That way you can give them feedback on their attire. You can give them feedback on the questions that the answers that they may have to those questions that you ask, maybe the way they're sitting, the nonverbal language that they're kind of giving off, or the nonverbals that they're giving off in an interview. So setting up a mock interview would be very helpful for our student teachers. Also reviewing their resume and giving them some pointers. So if they have a resume that's not professional, or that looks good but needs to be on a professional type of paper, you can give them that kind of feedback. So just reviewing their resume and giving them some pointers would be also very helpful at this time with them moving forward. And then if you would like to, or if they've asked you to, or you would be comfortable in creating a reference letter to support them, or agreeing to be a reference would be also a support. With them, and kind of discussing with them what your high points for them would be and what some of the growth points for them would be if you were asked in an interview. So making sure that they understand the type of reference that you would be able to give them as their clinical educator. Are there any questions about how to help support them moving forward in the future? Okay, I'm going to move forward. Continuing on from that, some of our student teachers might take substitute positions or be employed full time. And so we want to work to encourage them to do the following. Um, After they have transitioned back, um, classes or blocks of time in the classroom, giving them opportunities to visit other classrooms to observe. And we ask that you would give them some recommendations and explanations of what you want them to see. So if you're sending them to Miss Jones's classroom because she has awesome classroom management that may differ from the style of classroom management that you have, but it's still very effective, then let your student teacher know that, hey, I know you're going to want your classroom. You may want to get some new ideas on classroom management, some ways that you might be more comfortable, or some more strategies that you might be able to use that are strategies for your tool belt. You may send them to that teacher and just explain to them, hey, I'd love for you to go see this person. I think this will be good for you. Also, maybe having them to converse with the EC teacher or another specialized service provider in the school, whether it's an ELL teacher, your BMT, who may have some other classroom strategies for classroom management. Them being able to visit some other people and have conversations about what they will need and give them some more tools for their tool belt. In the profession, as far as having their own classroom, whether it's management, instruction, rigor, modifications, anything of that nature. Moving forward, we encourage them to do that as well. Also, staying in touch with you or another positive teacher that they've connected with as a mentor. Encourage them to do that, to reach out to you if they have a question, or if they're going to an interview at a STEM school, but they never really experienced a STEM school. You can give them some information on that, or another positive mentor. So having them to establish a mentor or a set of mentors that can encourage them as they walk this professional journey out as a new teacher. Um, and then finally, encourage them to start a what I want to do next year notebook as they're starting their new experience. So as they're learning things, as they're having experiences, it's kind of like a journal, but you're saying, this is what I learned as a result of today. And so next year or next month or next semester, I want to do this, or next semester, I want to do that, and have them kind of reflect on their everyday experiences. So as they continue to grow as teachers, every year they have a plan or a guide of things that they do want to do, and some things that they've tried that were not so effective. And finally, ending on a high note. So I've listed a bit.ly here at the bottom if you want to copy it down. It's a live bit.ly and it is case sensitive. So it's bit.ly, which is bit.ly/ST as in student teacher, end of semester. So EOS, STEOS 2019. And this bit.ly leads to a website of activities that a student, teacher, or a teacher could do at the end of the year or the end of a semester when you're ending out with, I know some middle school, high school folks are ending out the semester with one group of kids. And so if you're ending out this semester with a group of students, as our student teachers are transitioning out, there are some ideas of some things that they can do that are kind of fun, and that students can kind of continue to have their instruction given, but also have some fun with the student teacher to end the semester and their work with the students on a high note. The pictures that you see here are examples of a book tasting for elementary folks. So if you've got holiday time and your student teacher will be finishing out their student teaching last block or block of time the week of Thanksgiving, maybe they'll do a Thanksgiving book tasting where they can pull some books that are holiday features, I guess you might say, and they can have table conversations along with you in transitioning. So you all are kind of doing a co-teaching model with the holiday time with students, so that the student can kind of transition out and you are still co-teaching with them and transitioning back in. So just wanted to share as you're ending the student teaching semester, to give them some opportunities to kind of build relationships and allow students to really feel some type of closure with them exiting the classroom and you taking back over the instruction full time. Are there any questions about that? And I have lots of those placemats for book tastings and the reflection sheets. If you are interested in any of those materials, my email will be listed on the last slide, and I will be, I can share those with you. I'll be more than happy to share those with you if you're interested in those. Okay. So our final thing that I would like for us to do, and again, I'm not going to keep you this amount of time, but I would like for you to submit this final task for the webinar to me, and my email is there at the bottom. And once you submit your letter, if you're interested in any of those materials that I listed on the previous slide, please email me that request as well, and I'll get it back to you. But there is a letter that I would like for you all to write. And I would like for you to choose between a Dear Student Teacher letter and a Dear Future CE letter. And so for the remaining few minutes that we have, I would like for you to um, choose one of these letters and write one of these letters um, to either your student teacher. And this will be just something that you would give to me. And if you are comfortable or you would like to give this letter to your student teacher, I would love for you to give it to them if you choose that letter. Or also, if you would send, if you would like to, you can do both, but I'm asking that you only do one. But if you could write a letter to a future CE about your experience this semester and some lessons that you've learned. I know that some of you who have tried in the moment coaching for the first time may have some very important lessons to share or things that you've learned. Um, and I would love for you to share your wisdom with another CE that will be your fellow CE coming along that we might share in the future about your experience. So to end on a high note, we would like for you to complete these letters. I'm going to stay on until 6:10 to allow you to ask any questions if you have any questions. But if you will write this letter, and it can be handwritten and scanned to me, or it can be emailed to me. But if you would complete a letter, it doesn't have to be long at all, just anything that you want to share. So for the student teacher, you made it to here's some examples on the screen. And here's an example starter. You've made it to the end of the semester, and now you're closing in on the end of your student teaching. So far, we can celebrate and then list the things that they can celebrate. And then don't forget the things that we've talked about that you want to work on. I'm so excited to see you continue to grow in this particular area. And then you just want to finish up however you love. And I just put an example, your number one fan, your clinical educator. And for CE, you're about to become a clinical educator for a student teacher. I've been a CE for however long, 3 months, 2 years, and want to share some very important lessons I've learned and just kind of list those things out. You can bullet those things. It doesn't have to be anything really formal. But we just want to end both with our student teachers as well as future CEs to let them know some lessons that you've learned and that you'd like to share with them about this experience and some of the great things that you have been able to accomplish this semester with your student teacher. Again, I will be on until 6:10 if you have any questions. Otherwise, once you have completed your letter, you are free to email that to me, and you may log off whenever you are done with this task. Awesome. I've got one letter. Do not feel rushed. We've got several more minutes. Once you have submitted your um, letter, you are free to log off. And thank you again for attending. And I certainly appreciate your time and your support with our student teachers. This concludes our webinar number 7 on ending on a high note with student teaching. Please remember to submit your letter to me, or letters if you choose to do both, to me at my email is lgmontgomery@uncc.edu. Again, that's lgmontgomery@uncc.edu. Thanks so much for your participation and have a great evening.